Might help if I have my mic turned on. Welcome to Challenger Tabletop. I'm Christopher, and this is another painting stream. There we go. All right, well, rocky start, but figuring things out. It's just my second stream, so welcome to the channel. And today we're going to be painting a Rogue Trader model, second one. And this is a Rogue Trader adventure. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Here you can see the model. Rogue Trader adventure with a chainsword. Interesting character, one I was pretty excited about picking up once I saw it. And I'm going to be using it as a Genestealer Cult's Neophyte squad leader. And I am naming this one Pardo after one of the hosts of SN Battle Reports. He was my first follower on Instagram for my new channel, and he is one of the guys who inspired me to get into broadcasting my 40K hobby. So let's go ahead and switch over to the painting setup here. All right, zoom in a bit. Okay, so I do have a face cam now while I'm painting. Pretty excited about that. And here you can see the model. Gonna zoom in on it a bit. It is primed, ready to paint, primed in black. And he's a pretty interesting model. He's kind of funny. It's a little bit hard to tell what's going on with him. On the back, you can see it looks like he's maybe wearing like a thong or something. And it's not exactly clear what are boots and what's bare leg. Same thing with his arms. So a few things have kind of I'm going to base my painting off a few things. One is he seems to be wearing a ring on his finger here. It's either that or just a casting error. But if it's a ring, it kind of suggests he's barehanded and he's not wearing anything on his arms. I don't see anything like a glove line. So he's either wearing a totally like a bodysuit, or he's got bare arms. So I'm going to go with the bare arms. And then on his butt, it kind of looks like he's got a thong, so I am tempted to go for bare upper legs. And then if you look at the lower leg, there is a little strap here, which is connected to his knee pad. But if you look further down on his ankle, it looks like there's some wrinkles, like he is wearing some boots. So I'm thinking that I'm going to paint him with boots going up to the knee pad, bare leg, bare arms, and then his torso, he's got on the front, he has some kind of armored kind of oxygen panel or something. And the question is, does he have a bare chest next to that? I'm gonna guess no, in that if he's wearing such a complicated upper torso covering, I'm gonna guess there's a vest involved there. And you can see some straps under his shoulder pads. And so I'm going to paint those straps as being the beginning of his vest. Maybe I'll do some kind of edge on there. And then he has a sword in kind of a holster. It's just a bare kind of a dagger. It doesn't look like it's in a scabbard. And I'm thinking I'm going to do maybe a leather brown for his belt. And then he's got a chainsword, and it's kind of weird. I'm going to zoom in really close on his hand and see if you can see what I'm talking about here. But it's hard to figure out where is his hand exactly. If you look at the back, you can see his arm goes into the sword like it's got kind of a hand guard. And there's what looks like a little window down here where you should be able to see part of his hand. And maybe up here too. So I'm thinking it looks like there's hand there, but if maybe I should use something smaller to indicate what I'm talking about here. So I'm looking at right there and right there. So I'm thinking that's hand and that's hand, and it's kind of a basket hilt with some windows to the hand. But then on the front, it gets more confusing. It kind of looks like you got fingers here, and it kind of looks like you got fingers and hand here. But if this is fingers, this shouldn't also be fingers. It doesn't quite make sense that his hand would be visible here and up here. And so that's a little confusing. It certainly does look like a hand here, doesn't it? So I've been having a hard time deciding exactly how I want to paint that, and whether or not I should paint fingers here or here, and if this should be like a kind of like a wrist protector, or if those are fingers. So that's confusing, and I haven't totally figured out how I want to do that. Maybe I'll be experimenting as I go, but I do have to make a decision. And then he's got a holster here for like a las pistol on his belt, and the bald head. I thought he looked kind of like, is it Stephen Pardo from SN Battle Reports? So I thought it would be fun to name this character after him. I do have several characters named after different Warhammer 40k people I see on YouTube. And I was going to talk today about some of the people who have inspired me in that regard while I'm painting. So I guess today we're going to be talking about 40k players on YouTube and the interwebs, and I'll see if I can knock this guy out in about 2 hours. I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. I got my Americano and my clean paint water. And I'm mostly just going to be using 2 brushes for this. A base small and a layer small, my 2 favorite brushes. Nothing so big on this character that I'd need to go looking for a bigger brush. And I'm going to be using my little brush holder here as my paint palette. And just going to dive right in. So I think we're going to start with the base brush, and I might start on his face. We're going to be doing this in Screamer Pink. And I do want to water down the paint a little bit. Not the greatest painter in the world, and I am pretty much aiming for tabletop quality here. I want him to look good from 3 feet away and be ready to play on the tabletop. Besides that, I'm not going for a Golden Demon win here. That's the GW painting competition. So diving right in. And let's see, what else happened today? The camera came, and I also got a super heavy tank bought off of eBay. Very excited about that for my Dark Angels. Be painting that on the channel before too long. It's the Falchion Space Marine Heavy Tank. Wanted to get a super heavy for my Dark Angels, and pretty much I think the top 3 coolest super heavies you can do for Space Marines are the Falchion, the Fellblade, or the Thunderhawk gunship. And Falchions to me seem like the best like anti-Knight, anti-Chaos Knight pick, and I am very excited about it. Did require a little bit of repair, especially on the tracks. Whoever originally built it did not do the best job, but I did get it pretty much fixed up in one sitting earlier today. Can you guys see what I'm doing here? Maybe I'll go in a little closer. Should leave this paint open. So, Warhammer 40k on YouTube. And I think you could extend that to Twitch, although I haven't watched as much Twitch as YouTube. And I've really just been getting into Twitch this last week. And I might talk a little bit about some people on Instagram as well. I do have an Instagram channel for Challenger Tabletop. It's just the same, Challenger Tabletop on Instagram. And so check that out if you want to see announcements about the channel and pictures of all the minis I've painted on stream or am planning to paint. You'll see a bunch of those on there too. All right, well, we're almost done with the head, at least this base coat. So, Warhammer 40k on YouTube. Who was the first channel I started watching? I want to say that Winters SEO, who is just about the most subscribed Warhammer channel on YouTube, would have probably been one of the first channels I discovered. I'm going to say Winters SEO and miniwargaming.com got into the action pretty early. Matt and Dave from miniwargaming.com. And I pretty much was hooked right away. I've been playing Warhammer 40k pretty regularly since probably about maybe 2008 or so, I want to say, at the game store, and then got my own place and have been hosting games at my house or my condo ever since. And Winters SEO was also kind of an at-home Warhammer player who started broadcasting his games, and he would generally, like me, play sort of like matched play but narrative focused. So I enjoyed the fact that he seemed to care about the 40k narrative and universe and enjoy it, and he always made a point of talking about kind of the narrative situation of every game at the start. And so I thought that was really cool. Probably his most common opponent, at least early on, was his friend Paul, and he would always introduce him as, say hi Paul, and so that, I guess, became his moniker. And it was really fun watching his channel kind of gain popularity, and I don't think he was quite prepared for how popular it would become. I think he just hit 100,000 subscribers about a week ago. But I love watching Winters, love watching Say Hi Paul. They obviously had a passion for the game. I think Paul must have collected 10 or more factions, maybe 13 or something like that. I don't know if he collects every single faction, but certainly he has quite a few. I'm getting up there now with my 4 Dark Angels, Drukhari, Genestealer cults, and now Orcs for me. Winters, he would usually be playing his Space Marines, which he called the 13th, or his Death Guard, which, what did he call that? The End of All Things or something like that? Death of All Things? Can't remember at the moment. But they were able to put on some entertaining games of 40k, and they would generally just be filmed with kind of like a handheld camera, I assume cell phone or something, and pretty basic production values, usually just Winters kind of narrating the action, and I can't remember if he would kind of play one-handed when it was his turn or hand off the camera to his opponent, but one or the other. And I think he was kind of one of the first to actually play games and broadcast them on YouTube, at least that I was aware of. But the miniwargaming.com guys followed pretty quickly after that. They have a shop, like a wargaming hobby shop up in Canada somewhere. I don't know why I have it in my head that it's kind of like over in Quebec or somewhere. Not exactly sure. But I really enjoyed those guys too. You got Matt and Dave, who are the ones who started it. And they seem like friends who had opened a game store and loved war games enough that they also started playing games on YouTube. And I could tell it was maybe partly to kind of promote their game store, but at the same time, they clearly love 40k. They have very different personalities, which is always fun to see two people who are friends with very different personalities. You have Dave, who's the Chaos player, kind of, how to describe him, really kind of bombastic and high energy. And then you've got Matt, who's like the calm, controlled, kind of nerdy guy who is, you know, is more like me. And honestly, I identified with both of them in different ways. Dave in his excitement and love of the game, and Matt in his kind of, thoughtfulness and personality. And Matt eventually started a Warhammer series, which really is pretty directly inspiring to my channel, which was called Beat Matt Bat Reps. So of course those are battle reports, and the Beat Matt Bat Rep is basically he would invite people on to play and they would try to beat Matt at Warhammer. And so he was obviously trying hard to win. He would bring good lists. He wasn't really like messing around with super experimental lists. He was trying to make himself hard to beat, which was kind of the theme of the show. And I quite enjoyed that series. And then as time has gone by, they haven't got a new person hosting their 40K battle reports. His name is Luca. Super nice guy. Entertaining to watch. I really do like that guy. He grew a beard and dyed it, didn't he? I think he also lost a bunch of weight after he started doing the show, which I'm proud of him for. I'm also trying to take care of my health. Oh, I'm getting off camera here. One of the nice things about having this painting mat is it helps me stay centered on camera if I just keep the model over the X. Well, painting his arms here. His big beefy bear arms. The two, okay, well I guess the three people these big beefy arms remind me of course, Dave from miniwargaming.com is super buff. So is Steven Box from Vanguard Tactics. And the 40K player everybody's talking about right now, Henry Cavill. The other super buff 40K player. I don't know which of them would win in a fight. I'm pretty sure Steven won the arm wrestling match against Dave. But Henry Cavill would sure give him a run for his money, wouldn't he? Steven's, I think, back in hardcore training mode, probably looking ahead to the time that he's going to be asked to arm wrestle Henry Cavill. I bet that's on his mind. He probably has a picture of Henry Cavill up in his gym, stares at it as he pumps iron, getting ready. Well, I'm going to try painting all of this as pink and just see how it looks. That sure looks like a hand. I'm going to zoom in a little more there. Doesn't it? Or is this the hand up here? Let's get my brush a little more wet. Does that look okay or does that look bad? Looks weird to me. Let's see. There you go. So which part there is the hand? Very hard to tell. I don't think it can all be hand. That looks okay. I think what I'm going to do is say this is the fingers up here peeking through a little window, and this part I'm going to paint differently. I think I'm going to paint over that, make it part of the sword. But you see what I mean about it's kind of hard to tell exactly how you're supposed to paint this guy? Which part is the hand? Like, this is definitely sculpted more to look like a hand here. And this, but this would make more sense to be the hand, to me, looking at it. Alright, well, I'm struggling with this guy a bit. Let's go ahead and do his upper legs, his thighs. This is kind of fun because how often do you have a character in a G string? Very weird. But fun. Alright. So I'd say the first channels I was watching in terms of actual 40k games were Winter's SEO and miniwargaming.com channels, but I don't think they were the only ones to get into it early. Someone I haven't watched a lot, but I know he was starting pretty early on, was Striking Scorpion 82. I think that's his name. Striking Scorpion on YouTube. I know he's been doing battle reports for a while, so I don't want to leave him out completely. But after those first two, I would say it's hard for me to remember exactly who came on the scene when, but one of the gamers who I remember has been doing it a long time is Skari of Skardcast, and he's one of my favorites. And Skari was kind of known for playing Drukhari. He's kind of like a Drukhari player, although I know he plays other things now. I've been seeing him painting Black Templars lately. And I became a Drukhari player too, so I felt some kinship, and it was fun to watch someone play the same faction that I play that not everybody else does. And Skari, I would say, is kind of like in the style of Winters, in that he's kind of like he is a tournament player, but he's also like a home hobby recreational 40k player too. He's maybe a bit more tournament focused than the other two channels I'd been watching. And he's a really entertaining guy to watch. And he just seems super friendly, super nice, very knowledgeable. And I do recommend his channel. And it was one of the ones that probably got me thinking, maybe I could do this. I'm definitely planning to do battle reports. It's one of the things I most want to do on this channel. Although some of the challenges involve stuff like lockdowns, schedules. It's not necessarily easy to get players at the moment. I had a couple games scheduled, and then I thought I might be coming down with COVID again. I did test negative today, or yesterday. But it was enough of a scare for me to cancel my Tuesday game, which was hoping would be my first 40k battle report stream. So we're not there yet. Well, here's the skin based in. We are going to go lighter pink on this, but this is just a first coat. And already he's looking like more of a character. I wonder if I've got enough paint on the face. I think so. Anyway, we'll come back in with a lighter pink as soon as that's dry. So moving on, what am I going to paint next? I might just go ahead and hit his belt, because I already kind of know what I want to do there. So who was the next channel to hit the scene that I started watching? I want to say it was probably Tabletop Tactics. They're a channel out of the UK. And let's zoom out a bit. Over on Tabletop Tactics, the host I quite enjoyed was the Spider. Let's see, I think his name is also Steven. But the hosts on Tabletop Tactics are the Spider. Bone was an incredibly awesome and hilarious player who was kind of like the co-host. Then you had Chef, Beard, and they do have some new players now. Stig and Katie are their new players who are also seem great. But I loved watching the Spider. He was also a Drukhari player, which is part of what drew me to him and his channel. And I loved watching sort of the antics between him and Bone. Bone seemed like kind of the friend who was happy to help out with the channel. And I want to say, when I did a poll on Facebook for who is your favorite Warhammer 40k player, like celebrity player, as it were, I want to say Bone was like the highest voted. People like how, you know, he'd just kind of go crazy during games and just make you laugh every single time. And he'd make himself laugh. And switch back and forth between silly and deadpan. And he'd kind of play off of the Spider was kind of like the straight one. Spider and Chef both. And Bone was the silly one. Bone and Beard both on there. And they were just so fun to watch. I really couldn't get enough battle reports with Spider and Bone. And I know I'm not the only one. Their channel really became super popular, and I would say has shot to the top of the most popular and well-produced battle reports on YouTube. I think Beard probably does their editing. I remember them talking about him adding special effects one time, and he does a great job. Their videos are well edited and really like snappy, you know, well cut together. Sort of like high energy for 40k, which is great to see, and was impressive. And I would say Tabletop Tactics became kind of like the first very professional Warhammer 40k channel on YouTube, where their battle reports started looking better than everybody else's, including mini wargaming. And they really raised the bar in a way that I saw kind of filter out to other channels. I don't know if they were the ones who inspired everybody else or if it was just everybody was upping their game at the same time. But after Tabletop Tactics, the other channels that followed and also became big all pretty much had very high production values. And I hope to get there myself. I do have a design degree and I've done video editing before, and I know we could get there. I'm a pretty busy guy. I'm working 2 jobs right now, so there's not a huge amount of time for editing, which does have me thinking more about live streams as an option for games, as long as people would enjoy watching that. So Tabletop Tactics, super inspiring, really upped the game and made Warhammer 40k fun to watch and exciting. And they were definitely one of the ones that inspired me and made me think, that looks like so much fun. I would like to be doing what they're doing full time. That would be fun. And that was probably when I first kind of started to think about the idea of, you know, doing what they're doing. Battle reports on YouTube. Not necessarily in a serious way, but, you know, in an offhand way. Oh man, that looks like fun. Hard not to say that looks like fun when you're watching Tabletop Tactics video. So after Tabletop Tactics, I want to say that was about the time that Play on Tabletop introduced their show 40k in 40 minutes. And that show again raised the bar. So 40k in 40 minutes set out to make a battle report into a show, a 40-minute show. You know how long it's going to take. You can sit down and watch it, and you know you're going to get to see the whole game in 40 minutes. And it's not easy to play a game of Warhammer in 40 minutes. I don't know if it's even possible. So the videos were definitely edited down very tightly and intentionally. And that was one of the things that really made the show good. I went brown on these straps for his knee pads, but I'm not really sure about that. I could go brown for the whole boot. I'm not sure how it's going to look. I think maybe I'll move to the armor now, because I do kind of know what I want to do for the armor. The armor is going to be black, but with some silver showing through, kind of going for the idea that it's like metallic black, I guess you could say. And the way I'm going to achieve this is by painting the armor silver and then adding a watered down black over the top of it, as opposed to a black wash, because I want the coverage to be pretty even and watered down so the silver still kind of shows through a bit. So just using some Iron Hand Steel here, base paint. And I'm going to start picking out anywhere I think there's armor. I'm looking at stuff like the shoulder pads, the knee pads, his collar, this sort of codpiece and chest plate. And this thing on the back. Kind of hard to say what it is. Looks like maybe a jetpack for flying around in zero gravity. Maybe he puts on a space helmet and then he's good to go. Of course, you wouldn't be good to go with exposed arms and thighs in space, but who knows. So 40K in 40 minutes, that's Play on Tabletop, and the host of that show is JT Mcdowell. Seems like a super cool guy, like someone who is trying to elevate the hobby he loves, 40K, and take it mainstream. Make it easy for people to watch. Make it easy, fun for people to watch. Easy to digest, easy to understand. And if you watch a Play on Tabletop video, one of the things that's cool about it is that you have JT doing like a play-by-play announcement, like a sports announcer, which does feel like it's turning 40K into a sport in a good way. So I really admire JT McDowell for, again, raising the bar on 40K battle reports, making them more exciting, more watchable, and just having the vision to think of what the game could become, and turning it into like a more of a spectator sport. Having an announcer, for instance. Okay, well, I am seeing a little spot here where there's a little bump on the corner of his shoulder pad. Didn't notice it before, but once you start painting something silver, you'll notice stuff like that a little more. Just going to slice that off with my X-Acto knife here. And just give it a little more paint to cover up that spot. Let's get some more paint. So, Tabletop Tactics, Play on Tabletop. I would say Play on Tabletop is right now the best Warhammer 40K show / channel on YouTube. There are a few other players who are kind of like regulars on Play on Tabletop. The one who jumps out at me just from memory is Tau Nick. Nick is energetic, funny, kind of silly guy who is fun to watch and tries to be entertaining, I think. Again, in a good way. And seems like you'd be a fun person to play a game against. So yeah, JT McDowell, Tau Nick, Play on Tabletop. Those guys are super inspiring to me. And I would say if there was a channel I would want to be as good as or better than, it would be Play on Tabletop. And if I reach their level, I would be super proud of the channel. But that'd be hard to do. Those guys really clearly have a lot of intelligence and hard work and dedication. And, you know, clearly that's what it takes to really make it. Who else? So, I think moving on to Tabletop Titans. They are, I want to say, located in San Francisco, the Bay Area, I guess. And the channel seemed like it was started by Adrian and Brian, who really are fun guys. Some of the most personable, charismatic Warhammer players you'll find on YouTube, I would say, are Adrian and Brian from Tabletop Titans. And you can tell from the name Tabletop Titans that they had ambition. They were kind of out to become big on YouTube, and they did it. I would say Tabletop Titans is now perhaps the most watched Warhammer 40k show on YouTube. I don't know if they're more watched than Winters, but one thing they've done lately that inspired me is they actually changed from doing pre-recorded, edited videos to live streams. And it obviously took a lot of doing. They had to get their stream perfectly set up and have a host on hand to basically track points and change cameras and answer viewer chats. They would kind of wait for a break in the action, and then the host would like ask questions of the players that were coming from chat. And I would say that's kind of the format I'm most tempted to imitate. Live streaming 40k games, not quite as well set up technically as they are yet, but maybe I could get there eventually. And they seem like they just love what they're doing. At the same time that they create probably more high quality content than anybody else, they seem to be having a good time doing it. And that is something that makes me think I would like to do that too. Right, I'm thinking we're probably ready to do his knee pads here. One thing that's cool about Tabletop Titans also is that they're somewhat local to where I am. I'm in Oregon on the west coast of the US, and they're just south of me down in California, the next state down, Bay Area. So it's conceivable that I could travel down there sometime and maybe even play a game against those guys, or at least I fantasize about such. I'm seeing another little spot here on his cod piece that I want to trim off. Coming along. So Adrian, Brian, and now Bridger are the hosts of Tabletop Titans. All seem like fun guys. And who did I start watching after that? I think now we're on to sort of the newest names in the scene, and the ones who have also made a big splash. First, I'll mention Vanguard Tactics. So Vanguard Tactics appears to be the company of Stephen Box. And let's see, I don't exactly know where they're located. I think they're in the UK as well, I think. And Stephen Box was a maybe like a professional bodybuilder, and who was like also a 40k hobbyist before he started putting all his time into Warhammer 40k. So he's a super fit guy, good looking, seems super friendly and smart. And his channel or project or company, Vanguard Tactics, is all about teaching 40k. And not just 40k, but I mean also, not just the game, but also sportsmanship which is a very cool thing. And he wants to teach you to be a skilled 40K player and someone who's also fun to play against, someone people want to come back and play over and over, which is of course something I strive to be as a 40K player. Every once in a while I do get a little bit demoralized during a game of 40K, and maybe I get a little grouchy, but I try to play every game out to the end and never forfeit early, just so that my opponent can enjoy winning the game if they're going to. And so I appreciate the fact that Stephen cares about sportsmanship and health and fitness. I think is really cool. I think let's start on the chainsword here, and I'm thinking now this is not fingers here. This is some kind of vent on the sword. So maybe it's a vent in the front too. Let's take another look. Is that a vent? I think it could be a vent. Let's decide it is. That'll be his hand back there. That looks more like a hand. Okay, so Stephen Bach's Vanguard Tactics has a website where basically he has tutorials on playing 40K. And if you're someone who is into like the tournament scene, wants to become a better 40K player and win more games, I would definitely look at Vanguard Tactics and just Stephen's videos in general. But he seems like a cool guy, very fun to watch, great sport, always has a good attitude, admits his mistakes when he makes them, which is not, of course, rare. But seems like an all-around great guy. And in general, I think the guys who are making it on YouTube playing 40K all seem like pretty great guys. Of course, there have been a few big names on YouTube around 40K who maybe don't seem like great guys, and they become kind of controversial figures, but not really what I'm here to talk about today. Maybe another stream. So moving on, the last channel I wanted to bring up that I've kind of been watching the most recently, it's very inspiring to me, is SN Battle Reports. And that is the project of Stephen Pardo. I think that's his name. Last name is definitely Pardo. And is he Italian? Anyway, he's the one who I'm actually naming this miniature after. And he and a friend, I guess, started SN Battle Reports. It's Pardo and Nick. I guess Stephen and Nick is how you got the SN of SN Battle Reports. And then usually who I see playing with Pardo on there is a guy named DC. Seems like a good guy. And they also list someone named Chris on there. I'm also a Chris, by the way. And they were one of the most recent. And what was really kind of fun to me about SN Battle Reports is that, in the era where such high quality battle reports are coming out, they seemed a little more like something I could do. It kind of seemed like two guys with a studio and a camera having fun playing Warhammer. And they were kind of jumping into the game a little late compared to some of these other guys, without quite as much in terms of resources or technical know-how at first. But their channel has really improved and gotten very good. And they actually, I think, set up and hosted a charity event this last year. I think it was called No Retreat. And it was a Warhammer tournament, invitational, for all these YouTube guys. All the ones I've been talking about pretty much. And it was hosted in Gibraltar. I want to say they played on a cruise ship. I'm getting off camera again there, sorry. There's should zoom out a bit. And so SN Battle Reports, I love watching Pardo. He seems like such a fun guy, kind of like, I don't know how to describe him, but just seems like maybe kind of an ordinary guy. And, you know, like I said, you know, someone who makes me think I could do this too, in a good way. He's kind of like your everyman. He obviously loves 40K. And he was my first follower on my new Instagram channel. So how cool is that to have someone who's, you know, in the big leagues follow you when you're just starting out? And so that was partly why I'm named this model in honor of him. But I have done, I have named miniatures in my 40K armies after a lot of my favorite YouTubers. I have a spider. I have a bone. This was my bone mini. He had a nameplate, but I just moved him up to a larger base, so I had to order a new nameplate for him. But that's bone. So I've done spider, bone. I have a Fritz. Fritz 40K is a guy who would do kind of like YouTube videos talking about wargaming, Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer 40K. And I really enjoyed Fritz's show, so I have a Fritz in my army. And I have a chef from Tabletop Tactics. So I've done Spider, Bone, and Chef. And Fritz. And now I'm going to have a Pardo. So that's fun. And I did, I think, order a couple more. Oh, and I have a Mr. Box. One of my Gene Stealer Cult Neophyte squad leaders is Mr. Box. And I am planning a Winters. This is going to be my Winters miniature. It's a like an old school Necromunda Adeptus Arbites Enforcer. He's going to be a Neophyte hybrid squad leader as well, like Pardo here. So that's fun. I enjoy putting nameplates on my miniatures. Kind of adds a little bit of narrative to the game. I've done it for pretty much all my squad leaders and HQ characters. Right now I'm just kind of looking at the mini, trying to decide what other areas I might want to pick out with silver. Maybe the trim on his vest. It's going to be pretty tricky. It might be a job for the smaller brush, but I'll give it a go there. So that's a pretty good summary of the YouTube channels I watch that feature battle reports, but they are not the only ones. I think my paint might have gotten a little too thick there. There are some kind of honorable mentions. I guess I'll get to that. So besides battle reports, there's also some people who do kind of like Warhammer or wargaming discussion on YouTube who I enjoy. And they are also somewhat inspirational for this endeavor. And so I'll just quickly mention a couple of them. I did bring up Fritz 40K. He's definitely one I enjoy watching. And if you have never watched his videos, he did get, I want to say he got videos taken down at some point, or cease and desist from Games Workshop or something. It's quite unfortunate. I don't know the full story there. Let me shake this up. Actually, maybe I'm done with silver. I would like to do 2 coats maybe on some of this, but I'll come back to that, I suppose. No, I guess I do need a little more silver on his sword handle. Paint's looking much better out now that it's well shaken up. Brush has got a little too much water. So Fritz 40K. Oh, and then the other YouTube discussion channel that I've been enjoying lately, who I think is quite popular and well known at this point, is Liam Dempsey's channel. And is it just called Liam Dempsey, I think? And he does live streams where he discusses Warhammer 40K, and they're interesting to watch. And they seem to be quite popular. And it's obviously not easy to break into this sort of just chatting kind of live stream world, in that people tend to watch whoever's already popular, not go looking for new people. But I have. But I guess he's the one who inspired me to want to talk about 40K while I paint miniatures. Just because it's a topic I enjoy discussing, and I think it's fun to talk about 40K. So I'm definitely looking forward to the time when I have more viewers who can ask questions and can get some more discussion going. But in the meantime, I'll just give you guys my opinions and thoughts. So, besides YouTube, there are some other places that I've been seeing people getting involved in the 40K hobby online. And one place is Instagram. Instagram, I've been sharing my painting for a long time on my personal channel. And now I have a new one, Challenger Tabletop, my new Instagram channel. If you're not subscribed there, definitely jump on there. And it's a lot of fun showing off painted miniatures on Instagram, and a lot of people have been doing it for a long time. And since I've started this new project, I've been making some friends on there. One person who I met right away and has been encouraging is Dark Elf Erin, and she also streams on Twitch as Dark Elf Girl and is local to my city. So that was really cool to make a new friend who is nearby and shares the same passion for painting miniatures. And on Twitch, I did get some encouragement from a Twitch streamer, Dr. Rhino, who's super nice. I absolutely recommend his Twitch stream. Fun guy to hang out with. He's another hobby painter. And he was very encouraging to me to start my channel and help me get some people subscribed or to come check it out. And he has a Discord where he interacts with people, and it's been really cool to become a part of that community. So those are some people who have kind of inspired me. I guess now I'll have my kind of honorable mention section. Some other people on YouTube who have been doing Warhammer. I mentioned Striking Scorpion 82. I think he is also in the UK, and he seems cool. Phil, the Glacial Geek, is got a pretty big YouTube following now. Also seems like a cool 40K player. And someone who doesn't really post battle reports or painting videos, but I do follow and love to watch his videos, and I'm sure probably anyone who's going to watch this knows him, is Auspex Tactics on YouTube. And Auspex Tactics does videos that are all about competitive 40K and basically how to get more out of your miniatures on the table. I think that's his tagline. So he will analyze data sheets and compare them, and he'll do math to figure out which units are the best per point invested versus different targets. And as someone who does play a lot of games of 40K, it's very helpful to have someone who's so invested in the math and the rules and is basically sharing that kind of information and research. Now, I am seeing a place I want to do just a little dab of gold, which is the kind of like pommel on his dagger. So I'm going to switch to my finer brush, and I'm going to use thick paint for this because it doesn't have any details. It's just a little spot right there. That might be the only gold on this miniature. I have normally been doing more gold trim on the kind of like characters for my Genestealer cult, but this guy, he seems like a rough and tumble combat guy, not somebody who would be wearing a bunch of gold ornaments. So I'm just going to do that little pommel on his dagger, gold, and that's probably it. If you had a button on his bags, I might do that too, but they don't seem to have buttons on them. All right, moving on. So besides the people on YouTube and the internet, there are a couple other Warhammer players or wargamers who are well known, who I might just mention here, kind of in passing. And I think I would just start by mentioning the OG gamer, wargamer. His ring. Totally gonna do gold on his ring. So I don't know if you guys are aware, but one of the first ever wargamers I'm aware of was H.G. Wells, the science fiction author. He wrote a book with instructions for wargaming with lead toy soldiers called Little Wars. And I was actually visiting my brother in England at Christmas 2 years ago, and he had a copy of Little Wars, and I got to examine it, and it was quite fun. It has, I can't remember if it's photographs, I think it's just illustrations showing how to set up play area. I know they have for lead toy soldiers, they had like some kind of play sets, like a fort or something that you could get. But he also showed how to use like a pile of books as a substitute for a building. And I know like how many wargamers used a pile of books in their first game of 40K. I think almost everybody. And so that tradition started with H.G. Wells, as far as I know. And I think that's great. H.G. Wells was also a miniature painter. And he's, I kind of look at him as like the father of the hobby almost. And then I think one of the most famous celebrities who is known to play 40K would be Robin Williams, the actor. And I did hear one great story about Robin Williams. Maybe I'll share. But let me first decide what color do I want to paint next. Maybe let's come back up to the skin and brighten that up with the next, with the highlight layer. So I'm going to be mixing Screamer pink and white to make my pink, and I'm going to go quite a bit lighter. I'm going to come back with wash. So basically, first I'm going to make the skin very light, and then I'll come back and make it darker with wash. So I'm intentionally going kind of lighter than I want it to be at the end with this next pink. Maybe I'll show you guys while I'm mixing here. I do have some water kind of mixed into that paint. Try to always have my paints watered down for most purposes. So Robin Williams. I've heard Robin Williams had a big 40K collection, including some Titans, Forge World Titans. And I believe when he passed away, his family just sold everything in the estate sale, I guess. And so whatever happened to Robin Williams' 40K army is a little bit of a mystery. I'm sure somebody out there has it and probably knows who it belonged to, but I don't know who that would be. And then, of course, Henry Cavill, the actor who played Superman, has been making waves recently for being a 40K player. Talked about it on the Graham Norton show just the other day, which everybody's pretty much going wild about. Now my paint was a little too watery, so it's kind of going into the crevices where I don't want it. Trying to switch to a little more dry of a paint here. So those are kind of the best known or most inspiring 40K players for me. It would have been really fun to play Robin Williams. I heard a story, read a story of someone on Facebook who said he played a game of 40K against Robin Williams in a game store. He said he was just in the game store, he had his Warhammer army with him, and who should come in but Robin Williams and his daughter. And Robin Williams was interested in his army, came and looked at it, and asked him if he wanted to play a game. I want to say this guy was playing Grey Knights. And Robin Williams had an Eldar army, which he jokingly called his Gaydar, like Eldar, but joke about like gaydar being the ability of gay people to tell who else is gay. And so they played a game of 40K, and this guy said that Robin Williams did like funny voices for the different models in the game. So he would like be all super serious like for the Space Marines, and then he'd be like, hey, for doing like flamboyant goofy voices for his Eldar. And what an entertaining guy. That kind of inspired me to think it's okay to go out of your way to make the game entertaining for your opponent, and to try to make them laugh during the game, and just to be a little bit silly, and realize that playing with toy soldiers is can be a fun, silly time. Doesn't have to be serious. And so I really liked that story. Would have been so cool to play a game against Robin Williams. I suppose he struggled with depression and had his share of tragedy in his life. I heard him say, I heard that he said one time that he ran into someone from his like grade school, like a teacher or something like that, and they were saying how proud they were of him, and he said something like, if I achieved anything in life, it was by forgetting all about that time. Like he was not at all grateful for his school experiences. I think it was rough on him. And for me, I excelled in school on some levels, but in other areas I was bullied and didn't always enjoy my time there. Like a lot of people I know. Well, it's coming along. You can see the pink is a lot brighter. Zoom in a little bit. Face looks a little sloppy, but not terrible. All right, well, why don't I talk a little bit about my goals for the channel, where I see this going in the future. For now, for the foreseeable, like next couple weeks, I'm probably mostly going to just be doing painting videos. As much as I would love to be playing games of 40K every day, it's just not in the cards at the moment. But I'm making an effort. I've put out the call on Facebook to some local gaming groups, and I've gotten quite a few people who have said they're interested in playing on stream. And it is just a matter of trying to find time that they can show up and record, and I'm also available. And it's not easy when you're working 2 jobs, and of course the pandemic definitely means that you have to be more careful about face-to-face interaction. and hopefully I can stay healthy and we can get some games of 40k in the near future. And I'm planning to probably play 40k games on Tuesdays for stream, because at least right now that seems to be when I am most likely to have the day off. But I have been thinking about maybe trying to get some smaller, maybe 500 point games in on Friday when I do have some time, maybe 4 hours or so. Or Saturday, I also have about that much time. 4 or 5 hours maybe. So I think first we'll be doing 1,000 point games of Warhammer live on stream. That's kind of the immediate plan for expansion of the channel. And I was originally thinking of doing that on YouTube, but Twitch does seem like a good option. And as far as live streams, there might even be a bigger audience for someone who's relatively new. I know the Warhammer tag on Twitch isn't quite as full as a lot of other tags, so not too hard to get off the ground. Compared to YouTube, where pretty much the only people who are going to see you going live are your people who already subscribed to your channel. And I've been thinking about doing some Instagram live. I'm not exactly sure yet what. Maybe just Talk 40K. I did an interview with a couple of people on there when I started my channel, and that was cool. Dark Elf Aaron and Turbidius. And I've been having a lot of fun on Instagram, getting a lot of encouragement, getting a lot of followers. I think I'm not sure where my follower count's at on Instagram, but it's definitely rising fast. And it's so fun on Instagram also to see all the work everybody else is doing. This really feels like kind of a collaborative community where a lot of people are kind of signal boosting each other with stories, and that's cool to see. Oh, there you go. What next? I think I need to pick a color for his boots and his vest. Maybe I should call that vest a unitard. Black? That's kind of what it looks like now, and I don't love it. Could go brown for his boots, could go black, could go gray. I think maybe I'm gonna go gray on the vest. And maybe I'll go gray on the boots as well. I'm thinking like gray cloth is kind of what I want to go for, because I'm not exactly sure that he would be wearing leather boots, which might be brown, and I kind of want to make it look like his outfit is all one outfit, so like the boots go with the vest. So I guess I'm going to go gray. Let's mix that. I don't have a gray out of the bottle right now. I do like Administratum gray. I would use that if I had it. Alright, so the future of the channel, I would love to get battle reports going, and I would really like to improve the quality of the battle reports as I go and see basically how good I can get. Try and compete with the big names out there who are already doing awesome battle reports, like Play on Tabletop, Tabletop Tactics, and Tabletop Titans. Those are really the guys I have my eyes, set on as far as the level I would like to rise to, the league I would like to play in, as it were. And my idea for the channel and for my battle reports is partly in the name. Challenger Tabletop is like, I'll be kind of like the host player, and I'll have different challengers show up to play games of 40k or challenge me in games of 40k. So a lot like the old Beat Matt Bat Reps on Mini Wargaming channel. That's kind of what I had in mind. I love to play 40k, and why not share that with people who want to watch? And I think it would make it more exciting to play 40k, to feel like you have people rooting for you, cheering you on, and you're even kind of making a record of your game, so, you know, more pressure to try and win. As, you know, people are going to see whether you won or lost. And it would be cool also to be able to kind of like track people's progress or their record, kind of like a sports player with their wins and losses. I think it would be really cool to have each player kind of introduce themselves along with their record, so that the viewer can kind of start to predict who they think is going to win, or maybe who's the underdog, and that would make it more engaging for people to watch, to feel like they have you know, decided either who they think is likely to win or who they want to win. Okay, I'm going to come back and do these little straps. What, silver? Because it's like the lining of his boot. And I went silver on the lining of his vest, so I'm going to try and keep that consistent. So I have got a few people who have volunteered to play, and my hope is that they'll become regular guests on the show. And I have a couple friends who play, who are kind of like my regular opponents. Mark and Sean are kind of like my most common Warhammer opponents. Sean is well, I guess he plays a bunch of factions. He plays Black Legion and Tyranids, and he's just started he has a Imperial Fists army, and he's just started a Demon army. So he's up to 4 factions like me. And my friend Mark, I got him started in the game by giving him a 1,000 point army of Firstborn Dark Angels, as I've been kind of trying to phase out my Firstborn by giving them away. And since then, Mark has started Necrons, and most recently, Grey Knights. And I have a feeling he's considering Thousand Suns, because he's looking at that Hexfire box for Christmas, maybe. Might be getting that. So he plays 3, maybe soon 4 factions also. So between the 3 of us, that's a lot of combinations that we can play. And I do have some house rules in mind for the channel, one of which I think makes for a more engaging game to watch, which is Imperium versus non-Imperium. Basically, I think that games of 40k are most fun to watch when you're watching a thematic battle between an Imperium faction and a non-Imperium faction. So I don't really enjoy watching like Dark Angels versus Ultramarines or Chaos versus Orcs, for instance. I just feel like those kind of matchups are not quite as fun. I would rather watch Dark Angels versus Orcs and Ultramarines versus Chaos, for instance. And so one of the house rules is going to be every game will have exactly 1 Imperium player. And that way, if you want to always root for the Imperium, for instance, you'll always have a dog in the race. Or if you always want to root for me as the home team player, you can. Or you could root for someone to beat me. Like, I know a lot of people probably watch the Beat Matt Bat Rep rooting against Matt. Just because his kind of like, hey, can you beat me? Might seem a little bit, I don't know, like he needs to be brought down a peg. So that's kind of the idea for Challenger Tabletop Battle Reports. And I'm very excited to be to get those going. I'm a little bit daunted by setting up a Warhammer 40k live stream. I'm not sure, for instance, if my laptop could handle live streaming video. I'll have to do some tests before we get to that point. Into the really tricky section here, where it's hard to see exactly what you're doing. But when I come back in ink wash, that'll probably all be hard to see anyway. Okay. Hey, I think we've got the whole model just about base coated now. There is a little detail here on the chest that I haven't quite decided how I want to paint it. So I don't know if you see, he's got like two little, what do you call them? Cables going from his chest armor up to where his mouth is. So it's probably like breathing tubes. And it looks like there's something in between them. And I don't know, again, if it's just a casting error or maybe there's like a light in between them, like kind of Darth Vader has those lights on his chest. So I was thinking maybe I'd hit this little area between the cords with a highlight color to make it look like a red or green light maybe. But I could probably leave that for very last. I think the silver is well enough coated that we can now come back and hit it with the black. I think that's what we're going to do next. So for this, I'm trying to make it look like this. It's metallic black armor, I guess, or that it was originally black, but the paint is starting to kind of wear through, and the silver is showing from underneath, something kind of like that. So I'm going to be doing a very watery black paint, much more watery than I would normally use. And when it goes on, it's going to mostly cover the silver. I want the silver to just barely show through the black. We'll see if you can see what I mean here in a second. Starting on his shoulder pad. So not dark enough. I want a little more paint. There we go. So it's kind of like an ink wash, but the difference from an ink wash is that the watered down paint is going to cover more evenly. The ink wash would more settle into the cracks, whereas the watered down black is going to cover the surface a little more evenly. And it will also go in the cracks, which is fine. Does seem like kind of a delicate moment. All right, looking at my show notes here. All right, so kind of almost on the topic of house rules, but a little bit different, is what kind of 40K am I looking to showcase? I do have kind of my ideas of what makes a great game of 40K, or how the game of 40K is meant to be played, you could say. And that's partly what I want to showcase on my channel. Because there are people out here who are more like tournament players, or like someone like Stephen Box enjoys the very competitive element of 40K. Trying to win the game, trying to bring a good list, trying to play well, and caring about that. And that's not exactly what I'm about. I'm not so much a player who cares whether I win or lose. I do try to win, but I don't necessarily collect my army and make my list with only winning in mind. I more tend to play the models I want to play. You know, use the units I've painted most recently, or the ones that I like the theme of the most. And in terms of what kind of style of 40K I like, I do play matched play games exclusively, but I play them as a part of a narrative campaign. So
what do I mean by that? Narrative 40K has become a thing in the rulebook where they tell you, oh, if you're playing a narrative game, you don't have to follow the rule of 3. If you're playing a narrative game, you don't have to follow this rule or that rule. And that's not really what I'm talking about. When I play a game of 40K, I want the rules of the game and to be basically as fair as possible. So matched play has always been the only kind of 40K I want to play, just because I feel like it's the fairest, most serious rule set. And as they introduced narrative as like a game mode, it really didn't appeal to me. It seemed like more like for people who didn't want to play matched play. And I love matched play. And I don't mind the restrictions matched play places on you. Like, you know, restrictions of how many of each unit you can bring and stuff like that. Gonna have to get a little more paint. So what do I mean when I say narrative play? I mean that I like to play 40K in the context of a campaign setting where the players have like a campaign map that they're looking at, and every time they're going to play a game, you look at the map and decide where the battle is going to happen. And you spend a few minutes before the game talking about the backstory of the battle. And I don't always do this every single time, but I try to. And I probably didn't need to do that. Let's wipe it. All right. So I've been playing this way with some friends in kind of a campaign setting for probably about 10 years now. Maybe not quite that long, but probably coming up on it. And it's been incredibly fun, incredibly rewarding, and as time goes by, the campaign setting changes based on the battles that you play. Just kind of in a natural way. And part of that is has to do with like deciding what the stakes of the battle are beforehand. So you decide where the battle is going to take place, and then usually you'll discuss what happens if one guy wins, what happens if the other player wins. So, for instance, you might have a game against Chaos, and you are trying to defend some civilian population against the Chaos Army. And the stakes are, if the Chaos Army wins, then the civilians get abducted and become Chaos cultists, for instance. And if the Chaos is defeated, then the civilians are rescued. Just something simple like that. But it could apply to like an entire planet or a hive, you know. So it's fun feeling like there's some story behind the game and there's some stakes. All right, I did start doing this black wash on his vest, which wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I'm not quite happy with how that's looking. I wanted to use a black wash there, and I might come back and do that next. But first, maybe I'll do the silver on the back of his knee pads. Other things that matter to me in a game of 40K, or I think make 40K better, are, of course, good terrain, fully painted armies. And one thing that does matter to me is what you call WYSIWYG. The idea that, especially if you're broadcasting a game for people to watch on YouTube, that you're not having to use your imagination to change one unit into another. You know, I don't like, you know, when I'm watching a game on YouTube and the players are telling me before the game, okay, these guys all look like they've got bolters, but I'm going to count that one of them has a flamer. Or I know it looks like he has a flamer, but I wanted a plasma gun in my list, so I'm counting it as a plasma gun. You know, I know a lot of players, that's no big deal to them. But for me, I think it spoils the immersion just a little bit. And I would hope one of my, you know, plans for the channel is not to have is basically to stick to WYSIWYG, as you say. What you see is what you get. And hopefully I'll be able to get everyone who comes on the channel to actually have the models they're going to be using. Or at least the weapons or loadouts or whatever. And then it is fun to have named characters, like your generic characters, to give them names. I think that is fun. I'm going to try and get everyone to do that too. All right, what are we going to paint next? Probably the... Well, we don't want to do that area where I just did the silver. Probably going to a black wash now. Nuln oil wash. Here we go. There's my Nuln oil. And I'm going to be using this on the... Oh, actually, no, I think on the gray. I want to use a Agrax Earthshade wash. So, I'm going to repaint some of that gray maybe on his vest first. No, that's fine. I can come in and hit that with an Agrax next. Looks to me like here on his G-string there's also a casting error. A little piece of metal I could have shaved off, or is that part of the trim? Hard to tell. I think I'm not going to worry about it. Alright, so starting the Agrax Earthshade wash. This is my favorite paint. And it just adds a wonderful dirty brown to any color, pretty much. Just a great shade for adding some natural looking shadows and grime and dirt. And in this case, I'm going to use it on the gray to turn it into a little more of a brown. So I've talked about what I like for a Warhammer 40k game, where I kind of my goals for the channel, where I'd like to see it go. I guess I'll say that kind of my dream for the channel would be to get big enough that I actually get to play games against some of these guys I'm fans of. And it would kind of fit with the theme of the channel, which is different people challenging me to Warhammer. It would be really cool to, you know, get people who are able to travel to come and play against me. That would be really fun. And of course, that won't be easy to get that big that any of them would be interested, but getting like an invitation to a no retreat type tournament would be totally cool. That's kind of like where I'd love to end up with the channel. Not so much just to be like well known, but to be able to play against some of these guys I admire. That would be really cool. All right, well there you can see some of this brown wash on the gray. It will change a bit how it looks as it dries too. It will get a little darker and a little more smooth out across the paint. All right, well let's do his vest the same way. So it'd be cool to have some players who are regulars, kind of like a league. And it would be great to kind of track those players' stats from game to game. So if somebody's being introduced, you could say, oh, they have a 3-win, 0-loss record on the channel. And that would also kind of help people predict who's likely to win the game. And I think the more kind of context and expectations you can give a viewer, the better. The more kind of engaging it'll be, as they'll have like a reason to keep watching or to root for one person over another. I've already gone a bit dark on this vest, but I'm just going to add a little Agrax and hopefully that'll kind of make it similar to the back. Kind of overdoing it with the wash here, as I am apt to do. Oh, that looks okay. So moving on. Oh yeah. And something they've been doing on Play on Tabletop that I quite like is having like a season of play. And that could be just as simple as like the 2021 year, 2022 year as being like a season. As opposed to like sports where your season is like just certain months or always exactly the same. Well, I guess that's kind of similar. So I think it would be cool to have seasons, and then you could have finals like they've been doing on Play on Tabletop, where I'd love to be able to invite the players who've won the most games or beat me the most times or whatever to come back and play kind of a finals. Maybe you could do something to keep it like Imperium versus non-Imperium while also having a round robin format or something. Maybe have like an Imperium team and an anti-Imperium team. But finals are fun because it feels like an event, it feels like the game's built up to something, and it gives you something to play for. Because, if the player who wins is more likely to go to the finals, it adds more stakes to the game. Alright, well, that's pretty much what I envisioned for the brown wash on the gray. That's looking good. The front didn't exactly work out perfectly because I'd already put some black on the vest, but not terrible either. I think I'm happy with it. Can always come back and add a little more gray and more brown wash if I need to. There you go. So next I might be doing the crimson wash. It's risky to do two washes back to back, at least if they're next to each other, because they can start to flow into each other. I don't want to have a crimson wash spreading out onto these areas I just did that are gray. Wash was a little overdone there. Fixed it. So I do have kind of a top 10 list of people I would love to play 40k against. Maybe I'll go through that next. I'll do a little black wash on his chainsword. So who would I most want to play 40k against of any of those people I've previously mentioned? Probably it is not going to be Henry Cavill. It would be awesome to play 40k against Henry Cavill, I'm not going to lie. But as far as like 40k players, I would almost be more excited to play some of these guys from YouTube. Just because, although I know Henry Cavill plays, and I take it that he plays Custodes, that's kind of all I know about him as far as a 40k player. On the other hand, he is kind of the face of the hobby as far as the mainstream people outside the 40k world are concerned right now. If any of them even registered that he does play. So yeah, I mean, that would be certainly a dream game. But I would actually say the person I would most like to play 40k against would be Spider from Tabletop Tactics. That guy seems super fun. I associate him with his Drukhari army and his warlord, the Spider. Always fun when you have a player who has a warlord for their army who's kind of loosely based on themselves. I did that with my Dark Angels Phobos captain. Tried to, pick the head that looked the most like me. Now I should give it a mustache now that I have one. So I would say Spider from Tabletop Tactics is probably the player I would like to play the most. I feel like it would be a challenging game. It would be a fun game. He would be a fun opponent. He always seems to have a great time when he plays 40k. And it would be fun to play against his Drukhari. So he'd probably be my number one. Second, I would say Skari from Skardcast, another Drukhari player. Seems like a super cool guy, and like he loves the game and always has a good time. So I think he would be probably my number two. Looks like I forgot to use the light pink on his hand in there. Let me do that real quick. So after Spider and Skari, third choice would probably be Adrian from Tabletop Titans. Seems like a really cool guy, seems really fun, and seems like he just loves 40k. And a great player. All three of those guys are great players, so I feel like it would be a really challenging, fun game against any of them. And Adrian made a big splash at No Retreat when he brought Orcs Speed Freaks buggy list, which was kind of the boogeyman at the time. And I love that he did that like, haha, I'm gonna be the bad guy. I mean, that just was fun, I thought. And you could tell he has a sense of humor and always seems to have a good time when he plays. Him and Brian both. Fourth, I would say Dave from Mini Wargaming. Mini Wargamer Dave. Talk about someone who gets invested in the game and goes all out and really has a good time when he plays, I would say. I think he would be an awesome opponent. Thinking I need a little more brown wash on the back, but we'll come back to that. I really want to do the crimson wash, but I'm just not sure the model is dry enough yet. Other than that, we're looking pretty finished. Chainsword, I might hit it with a little more black on the blade. Or not. Doesn't look bad. Maybe a little silver dry brush or highlight on the handle. I didn't really mean to go black on the butt of the sword, so I do want to hit that with some silver. I'll do that while the rest is drying. So, Mini Wargamer Dave, and talk about someone I've been watching for a while. He's been doing battle reports for ages now. Probably 5 years or more. And so it would be really cool to someday play a game against him after watching his channel for so long. And fifth, Winters SEO, the guy who started it all. I love how Winters cares about the narrative of the game and knows the lore of the world and always kind of incorporates that into the game. I like how Winters doesn't like to play Space Marines versus Space Marines, just like me. So I feel like we have a little bit in common as players in terms of our taste in the game. And which army of his would I like to fight? The 13th is his Space Marine faction. And Winters does something with the 13th which I don't love, which is that he changes chapter tactics with them. Something that a lot of players do, where they will change their tactics, chapter tactics from game to game, especially if they have a custom chapter that they created themselves. And what I don't like about it is I feel like it gives you an advantage relative to someone who just picked a chapter and stuck with it. And anytime you're giving yourself an advantage, I'm, a little bit, nonplussed, I guess. So I think I would rather play against his Death Guard. Although Winters has now got a Deathwing army. It's what he brought to No Retreat. And hey, it would be pretty cool to do a team game with Winters Deathwing and my Dark Angels 10th Company. I mostly play 10th Company, Phobos, and Scout Marines. So Winters would probably be my number 5. Number 6, I would say Stefan Box. I think it's Stephen Box of Vanguard Tactics. Such a cool guy. Seems super fun. He would be a great opponent to play against. You know you'd have a nice fair game. He'd be a good sport. And he just seems like a fun guy to hang out with. And an excellent player. So I know it would be a really challenging game. Well, I think it might be time for the Crimson Wash. I'm seeing there's still a little bit of wet wash maybe in this crevice. I'm just going to try and pull that out with my brush now before I come in and do the Crimson Wash. Just using my brush like a sponge to kind of soak up some of this paint so it doesn't all bleed together when I do the crimson. And it is kind of staining his flesh a little bit, which I don't want. So Stephen Box from Vanguard Tactics would be number 6. 7th place, who I would like to play against the most, Brian from Tabletop Titans. Brian, like Adrian, seems like a super fun guy, great sport, and clearly loves the game. And Brian is maybe even more into the lore of the game, but he also seems like a bit more of a, maybe more competitive. So I ranked Adrian higher probably for that reason. Brian, I know it would be a tough match, and you maybe wouldn't be able to count on him bringing a fluffy list. He might bring something really nasty and enjoy beating you with it. So, but it would be a fun game, and I love how much passion he has for the universe and the game and playing and painting. He just seems like someone who loves the hobby and would be a great time to play against. Let's see, I think Crimson Wash now. Here we go. Here's my Carroburg Crimson. Shade Wash. I always call shade a wash. Does everybody else do that too? I'm going to be using my small brush for this just to try to keep the wash controlled. And going to start by getting it in sort of the crevices of the face, and then I'll spread it around the rest of the area. Trying to make sure to get all the edges so they kind of darken up. And not trying to put a lot of it on the top of his head. Can give it a little wipe with my finger to create kind of a little bit of a highlight there. That's looking so-so. Looking okay. So number 8, I would say Fritz 40K. Fritz, I've been listening to his YouTube channel. It's kind of like Warhammer discussion, tabletop gaming, role-playing, Dungeons and Dragons. He really covers it all. And that's like me. I play all those games. And so I feel like we would have a lot in common. And I've reached out to him before, like through email, and he replied. So really cool guy there. I sent him a picture of my model that I named after him, and he was really tickled by that. And it was cool of him to reply to my email. So really cool guy. I feel like Fritz 40K is maybe one of the lesser known people among 40K players of all the ones I've listed so far. So I think he is back on YouTube after getting his channel taken down at some point against his will or something. So go follow him. He could probably use the support. Fritz 40K. I don't think I actually know what he looks like. Maybe I've seen one picture of him and he was sort of like, did not look like I imagined. Because, you know, you have someone who you only hear their voice and you kind of like I guess, come up with sort of a mental picture of what they might look like in your head, and then usually they look nothing like that. But Fritz would be my number 8. And he, again, is someone who not only has a big love of the game, but he kind of like talks about his love of the game and goes out of his way to make a good experience in every game that he plays, and actually thinks about what makes a good experience. And so someone like that, I think, would be a great opponent to play against. Hey, I got a viewer. Hey, it's Pyro. I was watching Pyro's stream earlier. Good to see you, buddy. Hey, yeah, Dr. Rhino is a good person. I definitely got that impression with all of our interactions. Just counting down my top 10 Warhammer players who would be my dream opponents. And I'm on number 9, which is going to be JT Mcdowell from Play on Tabletop. The guy with the beard, behind the camera usually. And when you watch Play On, he's the one you hear narrating the action. And I really get the sense that he loves the Warhammer setting and all the lore. And that's the kind of person I love to play a game of 40k against. Especially since I like the narrative of the game. Someone who enjoys the lore is going to be more receptive to kind of figuring out the narrative and helping to create it with you, and is going to enjoy that. You know, it's going to enhance the game for them too. And I think he would be a really fun person to play against, and he's definitely one of the people I admire the most in the space. Number 10. So many people I would have tried to squeeze on this list, but number 10, I would say Beard from Tabletop Tactics. Beard is a super high energy player, kind of a wild and crazy guy. I think he's a video editor like me, or like a design guy or something. And so that's cool. Probably have some stuff in common. And he's just so fun to watch. Always joking around during the game. And it seems like never a dull moment with him. So he would be my number 10. So Spider, Scary, Adrian, Dave, Winters, Stephen Box, Brian, Fritz 40k, JT Mcdowell, and Beard. That's my top 10 people I would most like to play 40k against. You know who I left out is Pardo from SN Battle Reports. I can't say where, but he definitely belongs on the list. He would be really fun to play against too. And that's who this model is inspired by, or in tribute to, by the way. And I do have some honorable mentions. Some people I would love to play 40k against who also didn't quite make the list. Starting with Mini Wargamer Matt from the old Beat Matt Bat Reps, which is kind of the inspiration for my Challenger Tabletop Battle Report idea. Also, Say Hi Paul from the Winters channel, and now Say Hi Paul has his own channel called that, Say Hi Paul, and he's very invested in the narrative and really appreciates playing games that have a narrative element to them, which I think is cool. And just seems like a fun, laid-back guy who just kind of calls it as he sees it, and clearly loves 40k, collects, I don't know, 13 factions or something. And so you really wouldn't know what to expect if you were playing against him, because he could bring a ton of different armies. Who else? Henry Cavill, of course, would be incredible to play against. Tabletop Tactics Katie, one of the newer players on Tabletop Tactics. Seems super fun, looks super cool. And I follow her on Instagram. She seems like she would be fun to play. Also, Mini Wargamer Luca, the new host of their Battle Report show. He would be fun to play. And I do imagine if I had a bunch of money, it wouldn't be too hard to get them to agree to let me come up there and play against them. I know they have visiting players come up there. I think they have kind of a hotel room or something that they built that they let people stay in and come be like guest players on the show. So that's already kind of like I'm envisioning doing myself. So Luca would be really fun to play and just seems like a super nice guy. Super fun. And I think Dave and Matt actually hired Luca to be their like battle report host. So talk about a cool job. And I'm, proud of him for doing a good job of it too. The wash got a little out of control here. Pyro, it's funny having you watch me. You're a better painter than I am. Certainly a more careful painter. But here you can see about what I do. Although it will look a little better when it's dry. Here I'll show you one that's finished. A couple finished models. Here's a Psyker from the same army, similar color scheme. But yeah, that's what I do. I kind of like heavy-handed washes, speedy paint jobs. Anyway, Pardo here is just about done. I think he could use maybe a little bit of light pink highlight on some of his exposed flesh. And it'd be nice to paint his eyes. But maybe I'll come in and hit that little spot in the center of his chest where I think it might be maybe like a light. Or maybe it's just a casting error, but we'll try to make it look intentional. Maybe I'll just do a dot of yellow and see if I can get that to go very carefully on that one little point I'm talking about. Just thinking this right here looked like it might be something. There. Just a little dot of yellow to make it look like a detail. Maybe it's a light. I don't know. But we're getting there. Not a whole lot left I want to do on this guy. Who else is on honorable mention? Chef from Tabletop Tactics, the other host. Chef is kind of the straight man. He's kind of the butt of all their jokes, but I love the guy. I think of all the people on Tabletop Tactics, he's kind of the most like me. And he's just always nice to see. I like the dude. So Chef, he would be on there. And my last honorable mention I have is Townick from Play on Tabletop. I was just watching one of his games before I came on stream. I think it was live, or maybe it was just, oh no, it was probably just posted yesterday or the day before, but it was like a holiday themed 40k game. And it looked really fun. And Nick is just, he's a joker, and he clearly doesn't take himself seriously, and seems like a fun guy to hang out with. And Tau is a struggle for me. I must admit, I'm one of those people who thinks Tau seem overpowered. Maybe just because I'm not bringing the right lists against them, or I haven't quite figured out how to counter them effectively. I've tried to get into melee against Tau a few times, and it never seems to work for me. But playing against Townick's Tau would be a real challenge, and it would be fun. You can tell that whoever's playing against him is always having a good time. So he's my last honorable mention. So what games do you guys play? And do you have anyone that you see online who you think would be really fun to play against? Pyro, I know you said you play Dungeons and Dragons. As do I. I probably have 100 hours Dungeon Master experience. And I've probably played characters just as much as I've DM'd. And if I was going to play Dungeons and Dragons with someone famous, it would not be the guys from that popular Dungeons and Dragons show, Critical Role. It would be the guys from the other popular Dungeons and Dragons show, Nerd Poker. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast by Brian Posehn, the comedian. And it was really entertaining to watch or listen to. If you like Dungeons and Dragons and you're looking for a good something to listen to, I definitely recommend Nerd Poker. It was a D&D podcast on Earwolf, and it used to be totally free, but now I imagine you probably need an Earwolf subscription to listen to it. And that was a really creative game. Brian Posehn, I guess, has been playing Dungeons and Dragons with his friends for ages. I guess back to his adolescence. And I think some of his really good friends did that show with him. And they had some really creative ideas that were very much, tied into the lore of Dungeons and Dragons. Like, I remember they had a game that was on a water planet, and eventually they figured out that what happened to the planet was it used to be like an ordinary terrestrial planet, but a portal was opened to the elemental plane of water. And so, as you might expect, water came pouring out of that portal, and it never stopped. So the planet was eventually completely drowned by like an epic flood, and it just kept expanding. So you eventually had like a, I don't know exactly how big, but like a Jupiter-sized planet, all, 80% water. And I think the players had to like swim down all the way to the ruins under the sea, kind of to get to the bottom of things. Oh yeah, they got dropped on the planet too after being abducted on like a spelljammer. So lots of kind of classic D&D themes at work there. Well, how's that looking? I did some highlights, but they were a little bit heavy-handed. Could come back and touch them with a little more wash. Maybe I'll do that. Just very carefully gonna use this Carroburg Crimson wash. Whoops, spilled it a little bit. Not bad. So if I was going to play D&D with someone famous, it would be cool to play with Brian Posehn, I think. That would be fun. Doesn't Jack Black play D&D? I bet he does. Who else? D&D is probably a lot more popular than Warhammer 40k in those circles. More people know about it. Less time involved. Not everybody's got the patience to paint miniatures. Although, of course, commission painting is now a big thing. Alright, well, I'm pretty happy with that. Let's take a look there. Maybe a little bit more wash on the sides of his head. But I think I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get the spinner set up so I can show this guy off a little better. In the meantime, let's look at the model as it started. Here you go. This is what we started with. Wiping up my spill here and getting my little model spinner set up. Pyro, thanks for joining the stream, being my first live viewer. Really appreciate that. Oh, I do need to base this guy. I think I'm probably going to base him off camera. I think the stream's probably wrapping up. Gotten to most of the stuff I wanted to talk about. Alright, just about ready here. That'll do. Okay, so here is the model as he is now. I can turn on this spinner. Oh, if it's plugged in, which it's not. All right, there we go. The finished Pardo model, ready to lead a squad of Gene Stealer cult hybrid neophytes, equipped with a chain sword and las pistol. And I'll add some sand to his base and paint it gray, going for kind of a rubble base. Well, that was really fun model to paint. Went pretty quick, and I'm happy with it. Came out more or less like I envisioned. Although it was one where I had to kind of figure things out as I went, a bit more than normal. And shout out to Pardo from SN Battle Reports. Thanks for being my first follower on my new Instagram channel, and congratulations on your success, not just of your channel, but also of the No Retreat tournament. It was incredibly awesome to watch, and I'm really happy you set that up and that it went so well. And perhaps one day I'll be playing there with all you other great guys. Thanks for everyone who watched the stream, and have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m.